Hello, this is Joe and Darren with Urban Hillsides Real Estate with another edition of Real Estate Reality. Thanks for joining us. Darren, I'm excited today.
No, you're not.
I am excited.
No, you're not. I get excited about this stuff.
You're a geek,
Sorry.
but you guys should also be excited because we are talking about new proposals for capital gains tax. And this should help a lot of people and maybe free up some inventory and get people to move on to the rest of their lives. So, the Realtor.com article termed it hidden home equity tax.
Right.
How would you explain that, Darren?
Well, people who have been in their home for an extended period of time, which include retirees, pay an additional tax when they sell their home, and it will change their patterns and habits because of that additional tax. Now, we make it very clear, this is a good problem to have.
Sure.
But it changes behaviors. And this legislation that's being discussed could alter that.
Well, in terms of why it's a pressing issue, it's a lot of what we've already heard, right? Rising home prices, home values, retirees moving on, and then also low inventory for the most part.
Right. The hope is that if the capital gains burden is lessened, that more people who are in oversized houses, assuming they've been there for a long time, or they're older and no longer have family living with them, they don't need that big house. I think a lot of those people want to transition, will be freer and more flexible to do so.
Right. Yeah, at this point, they're caught, again, because of that hidden tax later on.
The tax burden slows them down or makes them pause.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned a couple of things going back to 1997. So that was the last time capital gains tax was created or redeveloped.
Right.
What were those numbers from 97?
The legislation was enacted in 97 under Clinton, and the numbers that they put out there, it used to be prior to that, if you sold a house, as long as you pushed the profit forward into a new house, you paid no capital gains. Now they just established a baseline number, 250K tax-free profit on the federal side, and 500K if you're a couple in selling a house. Now, what's so relative about that you don't hear people talk about is that when that legislation was enacted, the value of a home in Los Angeles, the median value was $175,000.
Wow.
That's 2.5 times the median value if you're a couple, and 100% plus if you're an individual. The intention of that bill at that time was to make it a tax-free sale on the federal side.
Right.
Fast forward to 2025, 28 years later, those numbers are still the same, and the value of homes have gone up 600% in Los Angeles.
Wow. All right. Well, sounds like it's very much needed. Let's talk about the 3 different reform proposals. So we've got, by Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, elimination of capital gains tax altogether.
Right. Yeah, that's a little too broad in my opinion, but yes, it's out there.
Yeah. Well, and I read there's definitely going to be a shortfall of like $6 billion to make up if that happens. So that's not good
Just
either.
more tariffs.
Yeah, right. The second thing is a blend. So increased and indexed exclusion. So what is that?
So they'd choose a number to move up this article is talking about doubling the current numbers and then identifying an adjustment for inflation every year that would just naturally happen based on inflation.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. So instead of the 250 for an individual, it'd be 500. And then for a couple, it'd be up to $1 million.
Correct.
Great. Okay. And then the final thing is index. So index is adjusting for the inflation.
This one's very interesting if that interpretation, which all the details weren't there, obviously, this is just conversation at this point, like adjusting to inflation based on when you purchased. So if you purchased it 1960 for $10,000 and inflation alone has made your house worth $1 million, you would only pay taxes on anything above that $1 million in profit above the pure inflation adjustment to that time. The other thing that hasn't been brought up, which I'm guessing they'll probably tweak a little, is what qualifies as a primary residence. And it's important to identify that that is the only element being discussed at this time is primary residence. Doesn't mean it won't be expanded beyond that,
Yeah.
but primary residence is now living in a place 2 out of the last 5 years, which is an interesting, and you can use it as many times as you want every 2 years.
Yeah. And I did read somewhere that investors and flippers would not be part of this.
Again, owner occupied, and the way to get through that in some cases, as like smaller mom and pop flippers do, is and if they're flexible, they'll move into the place
Right.
and remodel it and live there for 2 years and then sell it and move into another place.
And that still stays within.
It stays within the guidelines.
Yeah. Well, look, let's explain why it matters. So there's a potential to unlock housing inventory here. It gives financial freedom for homeowners, and then it'll also create market fluidity and affordability for younger buyers. And what was the number that you found for how many people would be affected by this?
They did say about 37 million homeowners
Got it.
Are affected by having to pay tax beyond the current 250, 500 number. And going forward by 2030, the expectation is that more than 50% of homeowners, good problem to have, would be affected.
Wow. All right. Well, sounds like it needs to be solved. We got to figure this out.
So it'll free up inventory. You mentioned,
Right.
what does this do? Frees up inventory. It gives people who live in their homes, often people who've been there for a long time, who have built this equity, or retarees. It gives them more fluidity.
Yeah.
It allows them to get on with their life and move to a different location without that additional burden, and let that larger home move on to somebody who would use it as a larger home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have questions about this, let us know. I'm also going to drop the URL, the link, so you can read it yourself from Realtor.com. Take care now.
Bye.